If you're a Christian, sharing your faith isn't really an option, right? It's a command. But what pops into your head when you picture that in action? For a lot of us, it's that image of someone knocking on a stranger's door. But is that really the only way? Or maybe more importantly, is it the best way to carry out this mission? Okay, let's get into it. So, where does this all come from? Well, it's rooted in what's known as the Great Commission. This is a direct command from Jesus to his followers. And look, the wording is crystal clear: go and make disciples. This is the big why behind this whole conversation. This isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a core directive. And that's where things get really interesting. The why is set in stone, but the how, well, people have interpreted that in a whole bunch of different ways over the years. And that's the central question we're going to dig into today. All right, let's start with the method everyone pictures first. You know the one, the famous, or maybe infamous, door-to-door approach. When you think about it, a couple of specific groups probably come to mind. And the logic behind it kind of makes sense, right? It's a systematic way to try and reach every single person, to make sure nobody gets messed. It shows an incredible amount of dedication. Now, to really get a sense of the scale here, we've got to know the lingo. For Jehovah's Witnesses, every single member is called a publisher, and they're all expected to be part of this door-to-door work, even tracking and reporting their hours. This is not a casual thing. It's a super disciplined central part of their faith. But does all that commitment actually lead to results? And get this. This number is, well, it's pretty staggering. Back in 2012, it took, on average, 6,500 hours of activity. We're talking knocking on doors, leading studies, all of it, just to see one person get baptized. Think about that. That's a massive, massive investment of time and energy, which really makes you wonder about efficiency. So, seeing a number like that, you have to ask, right? Where did this method even come from? Is this what Jesus and the first apostles were actually doing? Let's go back to the source and see what the Bible actually says. And wow, when you put it side by side like this, the difference is just stark. When Jesus sent his disciples out, he gave them some pretty specific instructions. He said, find a welcoming home and then stay there. Settle in, build a connection. That is a world away from the modern method of going from one stranger's house to the next with these really brief, uninvited chats. Or hey, take the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. This is a perfect example. Jesus didn't go canvassing her village. Nope. He just had this one really deep conversation with her. But her personal story was so powerful that she ran back and brought her entire town out to meet him. Her testimony opened the door, and then way more people came to believe. It all started with one personal connection. And you know what? This wasn't a one-off. The pattern just keeps going with the early Christians. You see them engaging people wherever they were, in the temple, in public squares, hanging out in each other's homes. The Apostle Paul famously debated with people in the marketplace. Now, these are all forms of public outreach, for sure, but none of them look like that uninvited door-to-door system. Okay, so when you put all these pieces together, when you look at all these biblical examples, a really clear pattern starts to emerge. It's not so much about one specific technique, but about something deeper, a common thread that runs through all of them. And here it is, the big takeaway. The biblical model wasn't about cold canvassing. It was about relationship. It happened through welcome, through invitation, through real conversation, and just by doing life together. It was fundamentally relational. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Trust. That's the key. When you actually invest in real friendships, in real relationships, you earn the right to be heard. The message lands because the person delivering it is known and trusted. It's as simple as that. Let's look at another wild story. Think about this scenario. You've got this young Jewish girl who's been captured, and now she's a servant to the wife of a powerful enemy commander named Naaman. I mean, she wasn't some missionary, but right from inside that existing and, totally forced relationship, her genuine concern for him and her incredible faith, it leads to his healing and eventually his conversion. Her witness was powerful because it came from a real human connection. So what in the world does this all mean for Christians today who are trying to live out that Great Commission? Well, it suggests a shift in focus, moving away from just one tactic, and instead toward a much broader idea of just living and sharing your faith naturally. This means the most effective ways to share your faith are probably the ones closest to home. Just talking personally with your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, inviting someone to church or a small group, or even just living a life of integrity that makes people kind of curious. The goal isn't to have a perfect script, but to be ready to explain the hope you have when that curiosity naturally comes up. So we end up right back where we started with a very clear commission. But maybe the how looks a little different than we thought. The biblical model shows us it's less about knocking on the doors of strangers and more about opening the door of your own life to the people you already know. The Apostle Paul had his marketplace in Athens, so the real question for you is, who's in yours?